There's a moment many people reach that feels confusing in a very quiet, almost uncomfortable way, because on paper it looks like progress, but emotionally nothing seems to change. You start saving money consistently, you watch the number slowly grow, and everyone around you tells you that this is what being responsible looks like, that this is how adults are supposed to handle money, and that, if you just keep doing this long enough, everything will eventually work out. But as time passes, a strange frustration starts to build. Because despite saving more than you ever have before, your life still feels just as constrained, just as dependent, and just as limited as it did when you started. What makes this feeling especially unsettling is that saving money is supposed to be the solution, not the problem. We're taught early on that saving is the foundation of financial security, the proof that you're disciplined, mature, and in control of your life. So when saving doesn't actually create freedom, options, or momentum, most people turn that frustration inward and assume they must be doing something wrong, instead of questioning whether saving by itself is even designed to change their situation in a meaningful way. My name is Alex, and I spend way too much time thinking about money, behavior, and why financial advice often sounds correct but fails in real life. If you're someone who saves money consistently and still feels like progress is painfully slow, make sure to subscribe and give this video a thumbs up if it helps you understand why that feeling is so common, because today we're talking about why saving money feels responsible but quietly changes almost nothing on its own. Here's the first uncomfortable truth that most people never hear clearly. Saving money is not a freedom strategy, it's a protection strategy. Its primary purpose is to prevent things from getting worse, not to make things significantly better. That difference matters far more than people realize, because protecting your current situation and expanding your future options are two very different goals that require very different financial structures. When you save money, what you're really doing is buying stability. You're creating a buffer against emergencies, unexpected expenses, and short-term disruptions, which is valuable and necessary. But once that basic layer of safety is in place, additional savings often stop changing how your life actually functions. You feel calmer, you feel less anxious, but you don't feel freer. And those two feelings are often confused even though they're not the same thing. This becomes much clearer when you stop thinking about saving emotionally and start looking at it structurally. Imagine someone who manages to save $10,000, which is already a major achievement for most people. That money can handle emergencies, cover unexpected bills, and reduce day-to-day stress, but it doesn't fundamentally change where that person can live, how they spend their time, or how dependent they are on their income. Even at $20,000 or $30,000, the structure often looks almost identical. Rent or mortgage payments still arrive every month, bills still need to be paid, and income still has to keep flowing to maintain stability. The savings exist, but they're mentally untouchable because using them feels like moving backward rather than forward, even when using that money strategically could improve the long-term picture. This creates a psychological trap that most people never consciously recognize. Once savings become associated with safety, touching them starts to feel dangerous. Spending savings feels irresponsible, risky, or like failure, even when the spending could create more flexibility, more leverage, or more opportunity over time. As a result, people protect their savings aggressively while continuing to tolerate situations that quietly drain their energy, time, and potential, simply because those situations feel familiar and stable. Now, you might be thinking that saving more money is still better than saving less, and that eventually, if the balance gets high enough, something will change. That belief sounds logical, but it quietly ignores how human behavior actually works. As savings grow, so does the fear of losing them, which often makes people more cautious, not more empowered. The number goes up, but so does the emotional cost of using it. This is why many people with significant savings still hesitate to make changes. They delay career shifts, avoid investments in themselves, and stay in environments they've outgrown, because the idea of dipping into savings feels like regression. Saving, which was supposed to create freedom, ends up reinforcing the very caution that keeps people stuck. There's also a structural reason saving alone rarely creates momentum, and it has everything to do with cash flow. Saving sits still by design because their role is stability, not movement. Cash flow, on the other hand, determines how flexible your life actually feels, how resilient you are to change, and how much room you have to make decisions without panic. If your monthly cash flow is tight, no amount of savings will make everyday life feel flexible because each decision still has to fit inside a narrow margin. This is why people can have money in the bank and still feel stressed, because their daily reality is shaped by fixed expenses, obligations, and commitments that savings alone don't reduce. This is where saving quietly becomes defensive rather than strategic. Instead of creating options, it becomes something you guard carefully while continuing to operate inside the same constraints. You're safer than before, but you're not meaningfully freer, and over time, that gap becomes deeply frustrating. Another reason saving feels underwhelming is that it lacks visible feedback. Unlike income, which arrives regularly, or expenses, which immediately affect your lifestyle, savings grow slowly and quietly. You see the number increase, but you don't feel different day to day, which creates a disconnect between effort and reward. You're doing something that requires discipline, but your life doesn't visibly improve in proportion to that effort. Over time, this disconnect leads people to one of two reactions. Some give up on saving entirely and decide that responsibility isn't worth it if it doesn't lead anywhere. Others double down, becoming even more protective and restrictive without understanding why the results still feel so limited. In both cases, the underlying misunderstanding remains the same. Here's what most people don't realize until much later. Saving money is only powerful when it's paired with flexibility, leverage, or a clear purpose beyond safety. Without those elements, savings become a static resource that protects the present but does very little to shape the future. This doesn't mean saving is pointless or wrong. It means saving is incomplete on its own. It's the foundation, not the structure. Expecting savings to do the job of income design, expense control, or strategic risk-taking is like expecting a seatbelt to drive the car. It keeps you safe, but it doesn't move you forward. Once you see saving through that lens, the frustration starts to make sense. You stop blaming yourself for feeling stuck and start questioning the systems around you. You realize that the problem isn't a lack of discipline, but a mismatch between what saving is designed to do and what you're asking it to accomplish. This also explains why saving feels so different from investing in yourself, even when the dollar amounts are similar. When you invest in skills, flexibility, or optionality, there's a sense of forward motion, even if the outcome is uncertain. When you save without a clear strategy, there's safety, but very little sense of movement. Now, you might be thinking that this sounds like an argument against saving, and that abandoning savings would be reckless. That's not the point at all. The point is that saving should support a broader strategy, not replace one. Stability is necessary, but stability alone is not progress. The moment savings start to feel empowering is when they stop being treated as something you protect at all costs and start being treated as part of a system. A system that includes cash flow, time control, flexibility, and intentional trade-offs. That shift doesn't require recklessness, but it does require honesty about what safety can and cannot give you. When people finally make that shift, something interesting happens. They stop asking how much they can save without disrupting their life, and start asking how their money can reduce dependence, increase options, and buy back time. Saving becomes a tool instead of a scoreboard. This is also where many people realize that the real enemy isn't spending or saving, but rigidity. A life that requires constant protection will always feel fragile, no matter how much money sits in the bank. A life with flexibility, even with less savings, often feels more resilient and alive. If this video helped you understand why saving hasn't felt as transformative as you expected, make sure to subscribe, because this channel is about explaining the parts of money that people rarely talk about honestly. And if you've been saving responsibly while quietly wondering why nothing seems to change, you're not failing, you're not behind, and you're not broken. You're just discovering that responsibility by itself was never meant to be the finish line.